3 months after my breakup, I was doing a fantastic job pretending I was over it. By fantastic, I mean I only checked my ex-boyfriend's social media twice a day instead of every hour. Progress. Then his wedding invitation arrived. The thick cream-colored envelope sat on my kitchen counter like a personal insult. Apparently, he and his new fiancée wanted me to witness their happiness in person. Nothing says, "We're still friends," quite like inviting the woman you dumped for a wealthier replacement. I should have thrown the invitation away. Instead, I RSVP'd yes. A terrible decision. An absolutely terrible decision. The closer the wedding got, the more I regretted it. Every scenario played through my head. I'd show up alone. He'd introduce me to his perfect bride. Everyone would ask whether I was seeing anyone. I'd smile while slowly dying inside. My best friend listened to my complaints for 2 straight weeks before finally slamming her coffee mug onto the table. "You need a date." "I need therapy." "You need a date. Preferably cheaper than therapy." Exactly. That was how I found myself agreeing to the most ridiculous plan of my life. A week later, I was sitting across from a Marine major in a quiet cafe. The moment he walked in, every woman in the building suddenly became interested in coffee. He was tall, broad-shouldered, and carried himself with the kind of confidence that couldn't be faked. His dark uniform looked perfectly pressed. Every movement seemed precise, controlled, and deliberate. And then there were the eyes. Most people never noticed them immediately. They looked human at first glance, but tiny silver flecks shimmered beneath the surface whenever light hit them. His species had been allied with humanity for decades. They looked nearly human, except for a few subtle differences. Differences that somehow made them even more attractive. Life wasn't fair. "You must be my emergency date," he said with a small smile. I laughed despite myself. "And you must be my last chance at preserving my dignity." "Mission accepted." The answer came so quickly that I nearly spit out my drink. "Mission? I'm a Marine major. Everything is a mission." For the next hour he treated our fake relationship like military planning. He brought notes. Actual notes. A folder. A professionally organized folder. Inside were pages labeled things like potential questions from wedding guests, emergency exit strategies, and conversation recovery techniques. I stared at him. "You made a briefing packet? You said your ex's family asks invasive questions. So you prepared a tactical response plan?" "Correct." "You're insane." "Highly trained." The distinction apparently mattered. Over the next few days we practiced. Fake couple photographs. Cover stories. Relationship timelines. Favorite movies. How we supposedly met. By the 3rd rehearsal, I was laughing harder than I had in months. He was unexpectedly funny. Dry, intelligent, and completely serious while saying ridiculous things. At one point he handed me a printed checklist. "What is this?" "Wedding survival procedures. Number 7 says maintain visual contact with partner." "Yes. That's for crossing minefields. Large weddings are surprisingly similar." I couldn't argue with that. What surprised me most wasn't his appearance, or his military background. It was how easy he made everything feel. He listened when I spoke. He remembered details. He never interrupted. When I admitted I was nervous, he didn't tell me to relax. He simply said, "You won't face any of it alone." The words stayed with me longer than they should have. The morning of the wedding arrived far too quickly. As we pulled up to the venue, luxury cars filled the parking lot. Guests in expensive clothes drifted toward the entrance. My stomach twisted. I suddenly wondered if this entire plan was ridiculous. Maybe I should leave. Maybe I should go home. The major stepped out first and walked around to open my door. "Last chance to abort mission," he said. I looked at the crowded venue. Then at him. For some reason, I felt calmer. "Let's do it." He offered his arm. I took it. Together we walked toward the entrance. Within seconds, conversation stopped. Heads turned. People stared. Not at me. At the impossibly handsome Marine Major beside me. And for the first time all year, I had a feeling this wedding was not going to go the way my ex had planned. The moment we entered the reception hall, I understood something important. Bringing the Marine Major had been a mistake. A glorious, spectacular mistake. People weren't merely noticing him. They were tracking him. Entire conversations stopped whenever he walked past. Waiters nearly forgot their trays. Guests pretended not to stare while very obviously staring. My ex spotted us within 30 seconds. The smile on his face froze so quickly I thought he might need medical assistance. I almost felt bad. Almost. The Major leaned slightly toward me. Target identified. Please stop calling my ex a target. Former target. I laughed before I could stop myself. Unfortunately, my ex saw that too. His expression somehow became worse. The bride wasn't much better. She looked beautiful, confident, and completely secure right up until she noticed the 7-foot-tall alien Marine standing beside me. Technically, he wasn't 7 feet tall. He just felt 7 feet tall. The effect was similar. Before long, guests started approaching us. How did you two meet? How long have you been together? Is it true Marines from your world can lift vehicles? The Major answered every question with perfect calm. When somebody asked whether interspecies relationships were complicated, he replied, "Only when humans insist on asking very personal questions." The woman immediately apologized. I nearly choked trying not to laugh. As the evening continued, something unexpected happened. I stopped worrying about my ex. The entire reason I'd come to the wedding began fading into the background. Instead, I found myself enjoying the company of the man beside me. Whenever awkward conversations appeared, he somehow intercepted them. Whenever relatives started asking invasive questions, he redirected them. Whenever I looked uncomfortable, he noticed before I even said anything. At one point, an elderly aunt cornered me near the dessert table. "So when are you two getting married?" "We're not." "Soon," the Major interrupted smoothly. I turned toward him so fast I nearly strained my neck. "Soon?" I whispered. "Strategic retreat," he whispered back. The aunt looked delighted. "Excellent. I want grandchildren before I turn 90. The Major nodded seriously. "I will update our timetable accordingly." The woman walked away completely satisfied. I stared at him. "You are encouraging them. I am surviving them." Fair point. Hours passed faster than I expected. For the first time in months, I felt genuinely happy. Then the moment happened. We were standing near the dance floor watching guests stumble through increasingly questionable dance moves. One man attempted something involving a chair. The chair won. I laughed so hard tears formed in my eyes. The Major handed me a napkin. "Human weddings are remarkably dangerous. Yet you keep saving people. It appears to be a recurring responsibility." I shook my head. "You know, whoever marries you is going to be incredibly lucky." The words slipped out naturally. A simple compliment. Nothing more. The Major looked at me. For a second, everything around us seemed quieter. Then a slow smile appeared on his face. "Then your ex is about to be very disappointed." My brain stopped functioning. Completely. I stared at him. He stared back. I nearly inhaled my drink. "Excuse me?" Unfortunately, several nearby guests heard him perfectly. One woman gasped. Another dropped a fork. Someone whispered, "Oh my God!" Within minutes, the rumor spread through the reception like wildfire. By the time it reached the far side of the room, people believed we were secretly engaged. 10 minutes later, we were apparently planning a wedding. 20 minutes later, someone congratulated us on our future interspecies children. I didn't even know how the conversation had evolved that far. Neither did the Major. "Situation escalating," he murmured. "You think? 3 guests have asked about honeymoon destinations. Please tell me you're joking." I wish I were. Then came the disaster. During a reception toast, The bride attempted to thank everyone for attending. Instead, she accidentally glanced toward our table. "Oh, and congratulations to our future newlyweds as well!" The room erupted. People cheered. Glasses clinked. Several guests stood up applauding. My face immediately caught fire. Across the room, my ex looked like he was questioning every decision he'd ever made. And beside me, the Marine Major calmly took a sip of his drink as if none of this chaos had anything to do with him. The worst part? I was starting to enjoy every second of it. By that point, the wedding had developed a serious problem. Nobody was paying attention to the actual wedding anymore. The bride and groom were still technically the center of the event, but judging by the crowd gathering around our table, that technicality was becoming weaker by the minute. I tried apologizing to the bride once. She laughed. Then she pointed toward a group of guests surrounding the Marine Major. "Honestly, this is the most entertaining thing that's happened all day." Fair enough. The situation somehow became even more ridiculous. An elderly grandmother marched directly toward us carrying a plate of cake and the confidence of a military commander. She studied us for several seconds. Then she nodded. "Excellent genetics." I blinked. "What?" She pointed at the major. "Strong." Then she pointed at me. "Pretty." Then she announced loudly enough for half the room to hear. "Your children will be terrifying." I wanted the floor to swallow me whole. The major remained completely calm. "Thank you for your assessment." "You're welcome." Then she walked away. Just walked away. As if she hadn't completely destroyed my ability to make eye contact with anyone. The major looked thoughtful. "She seems experienced. She just planned our future family." "Yes. You're concerningly comfortable with that." She appeared very determined. I couldn't argue with his logic. A few minutes later, the wedding photographer arrived. That should have been harmless. It wasn't. "Perfect," the photographer said excitedly. "I've been looking for you too." "Why?" I asked cautiously. "Because every candid photo of the reception somehow includes both of you." That couldn't be true. Then he showed us the pictures. He was right. There we were near the dance floor. There we were near the buffet. There we were laughing near the entrance. At this point it looked less like a wedding album and more like promotional material for an accidental romance movie. "Stand closer together," the photographer instructed. "We don't need photos." "You absolutely need photos." Before either of us could object, pictures were taken. Lots of pictures. Far too many pictures. The major somehow looked perfect in every single one. I looked like someone trying to survive a natural disaster. Then the first real crisis happened. A waiter carrying an enormous tray slipped near the center of the room. Gasps erupted. Dozens of glasses started falling. Without hesitation, the major moved. 1 second he was standing beside me. The next he was halfway across the room. He caught the tray. Caught it. Every glass remained upright. Not a single drop spilled. The entire reception froze. Then applause exploded throughout the hall. The waiter looked ready to cry from relief. The major simply handed the tray back. "Recommend maintaining lower center of gravity." "Thank you," the stunned waiter whispered. "No problem." That should have ended things. Instead, people became even more obsessed with him. Then the sound system failed. The microphone stopped working. The music died. The bride looked horrified. Within minutes, the major was helping troubleshoot equipment with the venue staff. 10 minutes later, everything worked again. More applause. More cheering. More admiration. I watched him move through the crowd helping anyone who needed assistance. An anxious flower girl who had lost her parents. A nervous ring bearer having a meltdown. An elderly guest struggling with stairs. He treated everyone with patience and kindness. No complaints. No need for attention. No expectation of praise. And suddenly I understood something that made my chest tighten. My ex had always wanted to be the most important person in every room. The Marine Major never tried to be. Yet somehow he always became exactly that. Not because he demanded attention. Because he earned respect. The difference hit me harder than I expected. Later that evening, guests pulled us onto the dance floor. The plan was simple. One dance. That was all. Instead, somebody started cheering. Then another person joined. Then half the room joined. Soon an entire crowd was clapping and encouraging us. The bride and groom received applause earlier. We received significantly more. I felt terrible. And admittedly, slightly proud. The major leaned closer. I believe we may have accidentally won the wedding. You can't win a wedding. We appear to be leading. I laughed so hard I nearly stepped on his foot. As the music continued, I looked up at him. For a brief moment the noise faded away. The crowd disappeared. The wedding disappeared. Even my ex disappeared. And that realization shocked me. I had come here wanting him to see what he'd lost. Now I couldn't have cared less whether he was watching. Because somewhere between the fake stories, the ridiculous rumors, and the endless chaos, something had changed. I wasn't pretending anymore. When the dance ended, we slipped outside beneath a sky filled with stars. Cool evening air replaced the noise of the reception. For the first time all day, everything felt quiet. I looked at him and smiled. I'm really glad you came with me. His silver-flecked eyes softened. So am I. And for reasons I couldn't fully explain yet, I suddenly didn't want the night to end. I can't provide this section inside another writing block because the response already contains 3 writing blocks and the instructions limit me to a maximum of 3 per response. The wedding finally began winding down sometime after midnight. Guests were leaving. Decorations were being packed away. The dance floor that had been crowded an hour earlier now held only a handful of determined people refusing to admit the party was over. I stood outside the venue with the Marine Major, watching staff clear tables through the large reception hall windows. The cool night air felt refreshing after the chaos inside. For several moments neither of us spoke. Oddly enough, the silence wasn't uncomfortable. It was peaceful. I looked toward the parking lot and laughed softly. You know, I came here for completely the wrong reason. The Major glanced at me. I know. You do? You wanted your former boyfriend to regret losing you. I groaned. When you say it out loud, it sounds even worse. It sounds human. That's a very diplomatic answer. I've had extensive diplomatic training. That made me laugh. Then my smile faded slightly. I really did think this wedding was important. You were hurt. Yes. And now? I considered the question. The answer surprised me. Now I honestly don't care what he thinks. The realization felt strange. Liberating. For months, my breakup had occupied far too much space in my life. Tonight, without realizing it, I'd finally let it go. Not because my ex was suddenly a better person. Not because I'd somehow won. But because something more important had happened. I had met someone who treated me with kindness when he had absolutely no reason to. Someone who listened. Someone who respected people. Someone who made me laugh until my face hurt. I looked up at him. Thank you? For what? For coming with me. His expression softened. I'm glad I did. A nervous flutter appeared in my stomach. I wasn't normally nervous. At least not anymore. Yet suddenly every word felt important. There's something I should probably admit. The Major folded his arms. I am prepared. Of course you are. I like being prepared. I smiled. Then took a deep breath. When I invited you, I was thinking about my ex. I know. Somewhere during tonight I stopped. His silver-flecked eyes never left mine. I know that too. You do? You haven't looked at him in hours. That hit me harder than I expected. Because he was right. At some point, my ex had completely disappeared from my thoughts. The Major was the only person I'd noticed all evening. I guess you're very observant. Occupational requirement. Marine training? Partly. The silence returned. This time it carried something different. Something warmer. I found myself smiling again. You know, I meant what I said earlier. The statement regarding marriage? I laughed. You really do remember everything. Yes. I shook my head. Whoever marries you will be lucky. The words came out quietly this time. No audience. No rumors. No accidental engagement announcements. Just honesty. For the first time all night, he didn't answer immediately. Instead, he took a step closer. Not enough to overwhelm me. Just enough to make my heartbeat speed up. Then he smiled. A real smile. The kind that reached his eyes. I've never been looking for whoever. I felt my breath catch. What do you mean? His voice became gentler. I've been hoping it would be you. For several seconds, my brain completely stopped working. Of all the things I expected him to say, that wasn't even remotely on the list. You liked me? From the beginning. The beginning? The cafe. I stared at him. The cafe? You laughed at my mission briefing folder. Because it was ridiculous. Most people simply call it ridiculous. You organized a fake relationship in alphabetical order. I was nervous. That revelation shocked me more than anything else. You get nervous? Occasionally. Wow. Thank you. I didn't mean it as an insult. Humans usually do. Before I could respond, he gently took my hand. The gesture was simple. Yet somehow it felt more meaningful than anything else that had happened that night. I accepted the invitation because I wanted to spend time with you. I smiled. Even before the fake dating? Yes. You could have told me. You seemed busy plotting psychological warfare against your ex. Fair criticism. His laugh was warm and genuine. The sound made my heart do something very unprofessional. Then I leaned forward. He met me halfway. The kiss was sweet, unexpected, and absolutely worth every embarrassing moment that had led to it. Unfortunately, our timing was terrible. A loud cheer exploded behind us. We jumped apart. Half the wedding guests were standing near the exit. Watching. Every single one of them. Someone started clapping. Then everyone started clapping. The grandmother from earlier pointed triumphantly. I knew it! Several guests laughed. One person shouted, About time! Another yelled, We want invitations! I buried my face in my hands. The Marine Major looked completely calm. How long have they been standing there? At least 30 seconds, he replied. 30 seconds? Possibly longer. Oh, that's horrifying. Moderately. The grandmother marched forward again. Remember what I said about the grandchildren. Please stop helping, I begged. She ignored me entirely. The crowd continued laughing as we walked toward the parking lot. For the first time all night, I glanced back toward the venue. My ex was standing near the entrance. Watching. Months ago, that would have mattered. Tonight it didn't. I smiled, turned away, and slipped my hand into the Marine Major's. I had attended the wedding hoping to prove something to a man who no longer deserved a place in my life. Instead, I found someone from another world who showed me what loyalty, respect, humor, and genuine love actually looked like. And that answer changed my life forever.